Hello everybody, I'm Jay Kim, and today we're going to be talking about quadratic equations by factoring. As you know, quadratic equations, in order to solve them, there are different methods to use. And we're going to talk about the factoring method, which is the more easier methods, but sometimes it can be a little confusing, so I'm going to be talking about it. Julian Shin and I have made this. Julian Shin is one heck of a guy, and I would like to credit him with the presentation. And let's get it on the way. So, factoring, if you know what factoring is basically solving these equations just by factoring. So, what are some pros and cons to this? Well, let's look at the advantages first. Advantages, easier than other methods, so not like the completing the perfect square, no quadratic formula, which is very complicated. Graphing also can be much of a hassle sometimes. It takes very few steps, and it's much shorter than the other methods. Some cons to this, however, is that some numbers aren't factorable, so not every equation can be applicable to factoring a quadratic equation. It requires a lot of guess and check as well, so that it might take a lot of time doing it, and the greatest common factor, you would also have to sometimes take out the GCF, which can also take some time. Now, the zero product property, one of the key components of factoring. So let's take an example here. X minus 5 and x plus 4. Those are the binomials that set equal to 0. What do you have to do, though? To solve this equation, you have to branch off the two binomials set equal to 0. So this is kind of like an absolute value equation where you do the something is equal to plus something and something is equal to minus something, except it's a little bit different this time because you're branching off the binomials itself. So if you take a look here, so you would say x minus 5 equals 0, right? That's the first equation that you're branching off. Second one, oh actually, you know what? It's let's stick on the first one, is solve for x. So x minus 5 equals 0. What minus 5 equals 0? And the answer to that is 5. The second binomial is x plus 4 equals 0, and same thing here, solve for x. And what do you get? What plus 4 equals 0? Answer is negative 4. Answer of x's equals negative 4 comma 5. And that is the answer. Now, solving quadratic equation by actual factoring. This is just like regular factoring, binomials and polynomials, etc., and trinomials. But you're doing it with an equation. So, if you take a look here, so use factoring to solve the equation. So, for example, x squared minus 10x plus 25. Well, let's solve this here. What products of 25 will with x will equal 10x, or what multiples. And so if you take a look here, it'll be factoring. That's step 1. So it'll be x minus 5 times x minus 5, which will get x squared minus 10x plus 25 if you distribute. Or, since it's the same thing, it's x minus 5 squared. And then step 2, set binomial, or binomials, depends on if you have 2. Normally you'll have 2, equal to 0. So x minus 5 equals 0. And finally, step 3, solve for x. Answer, x equals 5. Because there's only one binomial to solve in this particular situation. So this is another example you might want to use. Use factoring to solve the equation, like again. So the example is x squared plus 18x plus 16. Step 1 is factoring. x plus 4 plus x times x plus 4, or x plus 2 squared. Sorry about the little typo there. It's supposed to be squared, not a regular 2. Set binomials equal to 0. X plus 4 equals 0. Again, it's perfect square, so it's only 1. And step 3, solve for x, and the answer is x equals -4. Now, if you want to factor this, like if you had a problem like there's an a term in front of the x squared, same thing, you factor and you figure everything out and you follow these steps, set equal to 0 and solve for x. And then now let's do it in a word problem. Now, so I thought it would be a fun way if I actually made up my own word problem. Since I like basketball, Julian likes basketball because he's the one who suggested this, and then so we're gonna solve a word problem here. So here we go. When determining stats in an NBA game, it can be modeled when an expression in x squared plus c is factored. The c term models the amount of points scored. The higher of the two c terms in the binomials represent the amount of field goals made as a two-pointer, while the other a three-point field goal, the number of three-point field goals made, basically. The remainder of points are counted as free throws made. Stephen Curry, the NBA's three-point shootout champion, had a game against the New Orleans Pelicans in the NBA playoffs, where his stats can be modeled by the expression x squared plus 24. How many three-point field goals made, two-point field goals made, and free throws made could Stephen Curry possibly have that night? So this is possibly, now, this actually never happened. This is just a word problem. Trying to help people solve factoring and quadratic equations in a word problem. So now let's look at what they said. So first, it said it can be modeled the higher of the two c terms. So you have to factor out this first. So it'll be x minus or x plus something, where the binomials represent the amount of field goals made as a two-pointer, while the other as a three-point field goal. The remainder of points are counted as free throws. So first, the higher of the two binomial terms, c terms, will be counted as a two-point field goal. So now, if you do the math, remember you have to times the higher number by 2, because it's times 2 because of 2 points, and the lower one, once you get it, will be times 3 because of the 3-point field goal. So now let's check and kind of guess and check on what number will work. So if you go out here and I take my handy dandy notepad. So what are some factors of 24? Well, let's list them out. There's 1 and 24, 2 and 12, 3 and 8, and 4 and 6. So now if you take everyone, remember you have to be reasonable. If Stephen Curry made only 24 points, obviously you're not going to go for these numbers, because the numbers on the right side of the comma, because remember this is 3-point field goals made, and this is on the left 2-point field goals made. So obviously you're not going to go for 24, because that means he already made 48 points, and that's not realistic. And then also here's 12. Obviously that already equals to 24, so that won't be realistic. 16, that may be, but then let's take a look here. 3 times 3 is 9. 16 plus 9 is 25, so that won't work. And then 6, 2 will be 12, 6 times 2, and then 4 times 3 is 12, so that equals 24. So now we have numbers that work. So if we go back to the presentation here, and the remainder of points are counted as free throws. Now if you remember, 6 times 2 equals 12. 3 times 4 equals also 12. So the 12 plus 12 equals 24, which means he did not have any points when he as coming from free throws. So now if you look here, the answer is 6 2-point field goals, 4 3-point field goals, and 0 free throws. So in conclusion, factoring is one of the methods of solving a quadratic equation. It is useful because it is easier than other methods and take fewer steps. Though there are many disadvantages, such as being a hassle to guess and check, it is still a simpler method than completing the square and using the quadratic formula, other methods of solving a quadratic equation. Well, I hope this video really helped you, and now you know much more about factoring and how to factor to solve a quadratic equation. Alright, thanks for listening and watching. Bye.